Welcome to our very first episode of Be Well Spanish Fork. Today we will learn from a typical American man that put on some extra weight and how it affected his health and relationships. And we talk with a woman that felt overwhelmed by her family responsibilities, which took her down a dark path. Also, we will visit with a family counselor that has some ideas for us about repairing our relationships. Stay with us for these stories and more on Be Well Spanish Fork. Hi, I'm Stephanie Ewell, and it's my pleasure to be with you as we start our journey towards better health together. Spanish Fork is a very active community, but the numbers and trends show that we all have need for some improvement. Be Well Spanish Fork was created to assist the city in its health and wellness initiative. It's our intent to help everyone in the city and beyond to improve our physical health, along with our mental and emotional health too. Each episode will feature some aspect of these topics to educate, but mostly to motivate us all to action. What can we do to improve our lives so that we can all be well? Our first story is a story that most adults have experience with. Growing up, we were in shape and strong, but then we hit a point in our lives where that all changes. Then we find ourselves overweight and not happy about it. This is what happened to Josh. Listen to his story and how he turned that around.
You know, I was always interested in sports, so I stayed active doing sports. I played football in high school. I was really into weightlifting in high school and working out a lot. So I was pretty active, did some cycling as a teenager. But it wasn't until, after getting married and going to school and having a full-time job, trying to pay the bills. The stress level was up to here.
Right.
And then coming home, I would, have dinner twice, 2-3 times, right? Go back for seconds, and then basically just lounge around at night. I was done. I was spent for the day. So that over 2, 3, 4 years added up to where I was uncomfortable. You look in the mirror every day in the morning, and I wasn't happy with where I was at. And it was basically, you start the day off looking in the mirror, and it was, you take a hit to your self-esteem. Absolutely. It kind of chips away at you over time. And, that leads to depression and just unhappiness. You're just not happy. I really didn't know much about nutrition. I kind of cut down the fast food and working out at the gym on my own, doing my own plan. That got me so far, but it wasn't sustainable. Because I didn't have healthy habits. I didn't have a support system around me. After my gym membership was up, my knee was hurt because I was too heavy. I was too heavy to really be doing a lot of the exercise that I was doing, so I ended up having to have knee surgery. It was about Christmas time of 2014. Spending time with my family. We ate great, right? but going outside to try to play with the kids in the snow, and I was just dying. I thought, wow, I could have a heart attack. This is really, really hard. And so, within those next few days, I recognized it's kind of the time to change, make a real change. To be honest with you, I feel like it was some divine intervention in a way, because when I was really pondering on what I needed to do, I was kind of like, I need to change, and I don't know how. I happened to get on Facebook, and there was a friend of mine who I knew was a health coach, and she had reached out to me a couple times before, and she had just barely made a post about a success story that one of her clients had been successful with. So
must have inspired you.
Yeah. So it was kind of, the timing was perfect. And so I finally just said, okay, I'll try her plan for 1 month, and we'll see what happens.
Why not, right? Wow. So what was her plan? What did that entail? It
was primarily nutrition. The first phase was a weight loss phase. And so it was a very strict nutrition plan to help me get to a lower weight where I could start to implement exercise without the risk of severe injury.
Absolutely. What is the kind of final thing that you would want to share as far as a message goes to someone that might be in that really low place where you found yourself when you finally decided to make that change?
Number one thing is probably surround yourself with people who inspire you to be better. Luckily, I had a health coach. I had my wife. And then as I started to get involved with triathlon and with other activities, I found a support system of people, like-minded people. Even coming here to this gym, developed friendships. And like I said, I tried to do it myself, and that didn't work. That just got me knee surgery and right back to where I started. So reach out to somebody, just let somebody guide you.
As you could see, Josh turned his situation around. He reached out for help, then put together a support system to keep himself motivated. Most people find that working with others is the best way to beat the weight gain and keep it off. Our next story is about Amy, the mother of a large family with all kinds of responsibilities at home. She became overwhelmed with the weight of it all and couldn't find a good way out. Her story is one that we hear about on the news all too often.
It was me feeling lost in my own life. I knew that there was something that I needed and wanted to do, but I didn't know what that looked like exactly. And what really spurred it was I was overwhelmed. I have 7 kids. Taking care of all of them for so many years, I had lost myself. I didn't know who I was, what I wanted to do. People would ask me, what's your hobbies? And I'm like, taking care of my kids.
Right. What else
Is that a hobby? And so it really kind of popped into fruition after I had left my house, walked out in an ice storm. Sorry. Not planning to come back at all because I was so overwhelmed and I lost myself in my mothering and in my being a wife and all my other roles. I just had lost myself. It was 2 of my dear friends. They came and found me in the hotel. And we had a good long discussion about what was going on and just having someone else outside of myself tell me, okay, you're giving too much to your family. You're wearing yourself out. We had just come out of a few weeks of sick children. 4 of them were sick all at once with pneumonia, and 1 was in the hospital. And we didn't know if she was gonna live. And so it rocked my world, to put it, in words. And as we were talking, we actually spent a day and a half together, and as we were talking through all of that, I recognized that I needed to live and that I had too many people relying on me. I needed to be well so that I could take care of all of them and I could give to them. And so I just went on this personal journey of finding what that looked like for me, that wellness. And it took a lot of prayer and reading and talking to friends, and I went to a doctor and I said, I need some medication, but I'm afraid to be on it, so I need to get better before I get worse. I think the biggest thing that I recognized was I wasn't the only one that felt like this. Like there are women across the entire world that feel lonely, that feel scared, that feel overwhelmed, that feel sad because they aren't living their passions. They're not living life to its fullest. Their lives are out of balance. I think the thing is sometimes it's scary to make some changes. Our bodies naturally just don't like change, and our minds don't like change. And so I think recognizing that, okay, I want to make a change. I'm not quite sure exactly how to create that change. When I found that balance, it was like, oh, my life feels peaceful again and joyful again. And that's that's really what I wanted, is I wanted to live a peaceful, joyful life. I have my own coach. I went to a therapist. I just kind of threw everything at it to get well. And I didn't let the guilt of, oh my gosh, I'm spending this much money, I'm taking away from my family. I said no more to guilt. I'm not gonna do guilt anymore. I need to take care of me and my family. And the way I can do that is by getting the support and help that I need. I'm gonna be bold and say, hire a health coach, hire someone, work with someone, go to classes, find a way to get that encouragement and that education. And really, we all kind of know what to do, but it's just the motivation and the accountability that's missing that piece.
Amy is a shining example of someone that threw everything at the situation and is winning. Her solution was to find a coach to help her find a balance in life. If you're feeling overwhelmed, look for ways to create that balance. Coming up next, we'll hear from a family counselor on ways to improve our relationships. Stay with us on Be Well Spanish Fork. Welcome back to Be Well Spanish Fork. The numbers are staggering. 50% of marriages end in divorce. And of those that remain together, many couples are not happy in their relationship. How can we change those statistics? We don't meet, fall in love, and get married just so that we can break up down the road. We recently spoke with Nevin Alderman, a licensed family counselor, about ways to renew our relationships and make them stronger.
The way that we incorporate this model is thinking about if you can go back kind of in your mind to the beginnings of a close relationship in your life. At the time, the love is new, right? And we're working to earn each other's love. And because of that, there's this hyper focus on how do I bring enrichment to your life? How do I bring fulfillment to your life? How do I make me something that's valuable to you? There's this what we might call an active phase of fulfillment. So I'll reference here for a moment this reciprocal fulfillment process, which is when you and I are connected to us, and you and I are contributing to the strength of us. We're both doing that spontaneously, so neither's under any sort of coercion to do that. It's coming from the heart, and we're investing in us.
Natural give and take.
Absolutely. So when we're in that process, we call that active fulfillment. Active fulfillment is this process of learning about what are those things that are fulfilling to you and finding out how can I bring those into the relationship. That's not always possible to be in the active phase of fulfillment all the time, right? It's easy for us to have careers, children, callings, service, all those things, right, that come into life that detract from our ability to constantly actively be focused on fulfillment. And so we call that next phase down from active a passive fulfillment. Passive fulfillment is when I might be at work and I might pause for a moment and think about, how are things going for my wife today? What are those things that she's encountering today that I want to ask her about when we're together later? Or what do I know about her day that when I get home I want to make sure that I take care of that honey-do item or whatever else that is, right? That I'm not always able to be there, focused on fulfillment, but that we're passively considering and contemplating. So you'll see this little wave through here. This wave, what it's showing us is that what we want in a healthy relationship is to be dipping into active and passive regularly. That's where a healthy relationship resides. That I'm constantly thoughtful about how my spouse is doing, and when I have the chance, I'm actively investing in her wellness. What happens often, we talked about the busyness of life, it's so easy to become complacent, right? We have so many demands that are on our plate that it's easy, and especially as you start to introduce children into the picture, to say that an infant has no ability to care for itself, and because it has no ability to care for itself, we must prioritize that infant first. And I'm not arguing that at all. I think that that's the case, right? But what can tend to happen is there's so much demand on our plate, children, service, work, right? All those other neighborly responsibilities, that it's easy to sacrifice you and us. Right? And that becomes our go-to when we need extra time. You know, when we need to draw from somewhere to accomplish life, we'll take away from us. And in the beginning, we feel comfortable doing that because we're secure in our relationship, right? And so we'll withdraw a little bit from that. Well, if we stay in this complacency phase for too long, it's easy to experience a drought. We call it a drought in the relationship, where we get to a place that there is no longer reservoirs left for us, right? We're going too long between moments of connection. And in drought, it's easy to start to become focused on those things that I want and that I need, and kind of a selfish approach to the relationship versus a collaborative approach to the relationship. And there's not as much focus on this give and take. How can I, contribute to your wellness? How can you contribute to mine? And of course, if we stay in this drought place for too long, it's easy to dip into extinction where there is no fulfillment left. And in this place, couples start to wonder, are we even compatible anymore? Right. Should we even be together anymore? In fact, it's interesting, when we enter into a counseling experience with couples, it's typically in this drought and extinction phase that they come. They're kind of at their last straw, and they're looking for some sort of hope. It doesn't make it impossible for them to recover their relationship, but it's also much harder when they come into couples counseling in this phase. They've waited almost too long.
So when you say that most people come in maybe during this unfortunate phase of drought and in the danger of extinction, what do you share with them to kind of get out and kind of try to move back up to that active passive phase?
Yeah, our main focus is to re-engage this active phase, right? And that's something that couples can do today. Watching this right now, it's something that they can go out right now and do today. Because what it requires is for me to take a step back instead of focusing on all the complacency and the difficulty of this drought or extinction that we've had, and think of one thing that I know goes the distance for my spouse. Whether that's bringing flowers home today and saying, you know what, I don't say this enough to you, but I'm really grateful for what you do for me and the children, right? Whether that's preparing his favorite meal and saying, you know what, it's been a while since I put this much time into something that matters a lot to you this way, right? Whatever it is, and every couple's different.
Efforts, right?
Right, going back, and we all know them, because at one time we were hyper-focused, maybe hyperactive, on earning each other's love in the beginning, right? So it requires us stepping back and going back to that place. Now obviously, the further along we are toward drought and extinction, the harder it is to engage that motivation. And with that disconnect, there's often so much injury that we're trying to wade through to get back to even wanting to invest in you, right? So it's difficult. We actually encourage couples that when they're spending a little bit too much time in complacency, that's the time to engage enrichment processes. And that's the time, if you need some help, that's the time to engage counseling, because it's fresh and new. We're not too far away from that active and passive place as a couple. And with a few ideas, a few strategies, and some accountability, we can get back to a fulfilling relationship quite quickly. Really, you look at divorce statistics presently, 50% of all marriages today will end in divorce, which is a staggering statistic. And out of those that make it, right, there's only a percentage of those that would actually say, my relationship is extremely fulfilling. And I think in our culture, particularly in Spanish Fork and in the local areas, I think in our culture it's even harder to say, you know what, I think we could use a little bit of help. Because there's this kind of expectation that our relationships ought to automatically be perfect, right? And if I'm doing a good job, my relationship ought to be happy. It's not about that. It's not about people failing. It's not about people being wrong or missing the mark. It's simply about reframing, how do I negotiate my life? How do I prioritize my relationships? And understanding that anything I can do to make the marriage strong is going to help our children find fulfillment, instead of focusing on how do I bring fulfillment to our children and neglecting how do we make the marriage strong. So what I would challenge viewers today, right now, what I would challenge them is to pull out a piece of paper and to start to list what are some of those things that I know are really fulfilling for my spouse. And what they can do is, even if they just pick one per day, right, for this week, just take one item per day and say, I'm going to do that item. Whether it's a friendly text, whether it's finding the favorite treat and leaving that on the pillow, whether it's a soft back rub tonight, whatever that is. I'm just going to pick one and do that for a week and see how that changes things for your partner. You don't want to do it and say, hey, I did this, what are you going to do for me, right? The goal is that I just start to reinitiate that process.
And then as you do that, each other will start to notice.
Absolutely.
That they do care.
9 times out of 10, yep, the spouse will experience that and be like, wow.
And they'll be
That's
motivated
nice.
to reciprocate.
Absolutely.
Right?
And we get back to that place of reciprocal fulfillment.
Wonderful. Our relationships need to be nurtured and cared for just like a beautiful flower. It's always easier to keep that flower growing than it is to nurse it back to health. If you have concerns or issues in your relationships, don't wait until they are beyond repair before trying to fix them. Take that challenge, do something every day to strengthen your connections. Welcome back to Be Well Spanish Fork. There are so many ways that we can work on improving our health and wellness. So we've created what we call video vitamins, short little ideas, tips, challenges that if done daily will help us along our journey. Sometimes these vitamins are recipes for a better diet. Other times they're simple tasks that remind us to care for ourselves and others better. So here's our first dose of our video vitamins. Take them early and often.
Hi, Liz Jensen here. I just wanted to share a healthy swap for our favorite fall drink, hot cocoa. To make it a little bit more healthy, you could use a light or even a no sugar added hot cocoa. And what I do is I put about half a scoop of protein powder, vanilla is best, and just mix that up and I add it right to the hot cocoa. That just adds about 15 extra grams of protein for your morning hot cocoa. My kids love this. On the way out to the bus, I just send them with their hot cocoa here. And to make it extra special, you can add some whipped cream. You could add some pumpkin pie spice, peppermint oil in the hot cocoa, or even some stevia with some cinnamon right on top, or even a drizzle of caramel. I hope you enjoy this quick tip, and thanks for joining us. Be well, Spanish Fork.
We hope you've enjoyed our first episode of Be Well Spanish Fork. You are not alone in this journey to better health and happiness. If you need a hand, ask someone for that lift. If you know someone that's struggling, offer that hand. Let's work together to improve all our lives. Be sure to share this program with all your friends. We appreciate the support. Until next time, be well, Spanish Fork.